Pain is the fuel. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding pain, hiding from it, numbing it, or pretending it never happened. What they don't realize is that the very thing they run from is the one thing that could transform them into someone unrecognizably powerful. Pain isn't the enemy, it's the raw material from which strength, resilience, clarity, and ambition are created. Every person who has ever reached a level of greatness has one thing in common. They stopped letting pain cripple them and started letting it shape them. Pain is the most honest mentor you will ever have. It doesn't flatter you, it doesn't comfort you, and it doesn't lie. It tells you the truth about who you are, what you can handle, and what you're capable of becoming. When you face pain directly, stripped of excuses and without the safety of denial, you discover that it carries lessons far more valuable than any book, seminar, or motivational speech. Pain teaches you hunger. Pain teaches you focus. Pain teaches you that the world doesn't owe you anything and that you have to fight for every inch of progress. And in that fight, you find your true strength. Most people want success without discomfort. They want growth without struggle, progress without adversity, and confidence without confrontation. But that's not how evolution works. The greatest victories are born from the deepest wounds. The energy that comes from being underestimated, hurt, ignored, or broken is the purest form of propulsion. It pushes you harder than comfort ever will. When things are easy, you relax. When things hurt, you sharpen. Pain is the fuel because it exposes your limits and then dares you to crush them. When you're uncomfortable, your brain wakes up. It becomes alert, aware, aggressive. You see possibilities that were invisible when you felt safe. You make decisions faster. You take action quicker. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start creating them. You stop seeking validation and start seeking results. Pain ignites the fire inside you that comfort kills. There is a moment in every person's life when they hit a wall, emotionally, financially, mentally, or physically. Most people interpret that wall as a sign to stop. High performers interpret it as a challenge to break through. The difference isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's how they respond to pain. The average person says, "This hurts, I should quit." The extraordinary person says, "This hurts, so I must continue." Because deep down, they understand a fundamental truth: pain is temporary, but what it builds is permanent. When you stop avoiding pain and start embracing it, you become dangerous in the best way. You're no longer controlled by fear. You're no longer softened by comfort. You don't crumble at the first sign of difficulty. You become someone who can endure, adapt, and advance no matter what stands in front of you. That kind of person is unstoppable, not because they have no pain, but because they have learned to convert it into power. The pain you carry could be the fuel that creates the strongest version of yourself, but only if you stop hiding from it and start using it. Pain is the fuel. It always has been. And once you understand that, nothing can hold you back again. Accountability over excuses means taking the full, unfiltered, brutal truth of your life and accepting that every decision, every delay, every collapse, every lost opportunity was shaped by you. Not your parents, not your past, not the economy, not the people who betrayed you, not the circumstances that blindsided you. And this isn't about blame. Blame is passive. This is about ownership, which is active, powerful, and liberating. The moment you take accountability is the moment you finally seize control of your story instead of being dragged around by it. Most people live in a narrative built on excuses. They hide behind convenient explanations because it's easier to say, "I couldn't," than to admit, "I didn't." It's easier to say, "They held me back," than "I never pushed hard enough." It's easier to say, "I wasn't ready," than "I was scared." Excuses feel good in the moment because they protect your ego. But in the long run, they cost you everything: your potential, your ambitions, your identity, and the life you could have had. Accountability hurts at first. but it frees you. Once you take responsibility, you can finally change. You can finally grow. You can finally evolve into someone worthy of the dreams you claim to want. The truth is that people aren't limited by circumstances. They're limited by the stories they keep repeating. You can convince yourself you're a victim, or you can convince yourself you're a force of nature, but only one of those identities will get you anywhere. When you take full ownership of your life, you stop waiting for opportunities and start creating them. You stop depending on luck and start depending on discipline. You stop hoping things will improve and start making them improve. Accountability is the ultimate form of personal power because it shifts the locus of control back to you. If your failures are your fault, then your victories can be your fault too. If your setbacks are shaped by your actions, then your comeback can be shaped by your actions too. You become the author instead of the audience. You become the driver instead of the passenger. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. That mindset separates high achievers from the masses more than any skill, resource, or background. But accountability isn't just about admitting mistakes. It's about eliminating excuses before they even have a chance to form. When something goes wrong, most people immediately search for an external reason to justify the failure. The accountable person searches inward. What could I have done better? What did I avoid? What did I tolerate? What did I ignore? That level of introspection is uncomfortable, but it builds the strongest kind of discipline, the discipline to improve instead of defend. Accountability forces you to confront the parts of yourself that you'd rather keep hidden. The laziness, the fear, the hesitation, the bad habits, the lack of follow through, it exposes who you truly are without filters. But that exposure is the starting point of transformation. When you know your weaknesses, you can fix them. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop betraying yourself. When you stop blaming others, you stop giving them power over your life. Excuses are the chains that keep people stuck. Accountability is the key that breaks them. The moment you decide that your life is entirely your responsibility is the moment you become truly unstoppable, because then nothing can derail you except your own decisions. And those are the one thing you can always change. Courage to confront your past is the turning point where real transformation begins, because nothing sabotages a person more quietly and more consistently than the wounds they pretend don't exist. Everyone wants to build a stronger future, but very few are willing to walk back into the rooms where their old pain, mistakes, failures, and disappointments are still sitting in the dark. They avoid it because it's uncomfortable. They avoid it because it threatens of the identity they've built to survive. But avoiding the past doesn't erase it, it empowers it. The things you refuse to face become the things that control you. They show up as hesitation, self-doubt, emotional triggers, fear of success, fear of failure, overthinking, people-pleasing, anger, or the inability to commit to anything that demands the best version of you. When you finally develop the courage to confront your past, you stop letting the shadows of old experiences dictate your choices. You stop living as a prisoner to memories you never processed. You stop repeating the same patterns that keep producing the same painful outcomes. Confrontation is not about reliving what happened. It's about reclaiming the power those moments stole from you. It's about looking at the versions of yourself you once were and saying, you will not define me anymore. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Most people fear facing their past because they think it will break them. But the truth is the opposite. What breaks you is carrying the weight of unresolved pain for years without ever releasing it. What breaks you is pretending you're fine while the past shapes every decision you make. What breaks you is living a life built around avoiding certain emotions, conversations, or realities. Confronting your past doesn't shatter you, it frees you. It removes the hidden chains that have been pulling you backward every time you tried to move forward. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that the life in front of you is worth more than the fear behind you. It's choosing to open the door you've kept locked because you finally understand that everything you want is on the other side of that confrontation. When you face your past, you gain clarity about why you think the way you think, why you behave the way you behave, why you fear the things you fear. And once you understand the root, you can finally change the pattern. The courage to confront your past also requires brutal honesty. You have to admit where you let things slide, where you stayed too long, where you ignored the signs, where you trusted the wrong people, where you betrayed your own standards. That honesty is painful, but it sharpens you. It strips away illusions and leaves you with truth. And truth is the foundation of unshakable strength. People who confront their past stop running. They stop hiding. They stop living in reaction. They become proactive, intentional, and powerful in a way that people who avoid their past never can. When you face what hurt you, you regain control of your narrative. You stop giving your past the authority to dictate your future. You stop operating from old wounds and start operating from new wisdom. Confronting your past is not a punishment. It's the liberation that allows you to become someone who is no longer shaped by old pain, but instead shaped by purpose, direction, and the freedom of self-mastery. Emotional discipline builds empires because it is the foundation that allows you to stay consistent, clear-minded, and unstoppable no matter what's happening around you. People think success is about intelligence, talent, luck, or strategy, but the truth is that emotional discipline outperforms all of them. The world is filled with intelligent people who crumble under pressure, talented people who quit when things get uncomfortable, lucky people who waste opportunities, and strategic people who freeze when their plans fall apart. Emotional discipline separates those who dream from those who execute, those who talk from those who produce, and those who hope from those who dominate. It is the ability to control your internal world so you can control your external results. Most people are ruled by their emotions without realizing it. They make decisions based on fear, anger, frustration, guilt, insecurity, or momentary impulses. They sabotage themselves with overthinking, panic, impatience, or doubt. They chase distractions when they should be focused. They quit when they should push harder. They explode when they should stay calm. They doubt themselves when they should trust their path. Emotional chaos destroys clarity. And without clarity, you cannot build anything lasting, whether it's a business, a relationship, a legacy, or a new version of yourself. Emotional discipline doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you feel everything and act in alignment with your goals, not your moods. It's the ability to experience fear and still move forward, to feel anger and still respond with strategy, to feel doubt and still hold the line, to feel exhaustion and still show up. What makes someone powerful is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. When you become the commander of your emotions, instead of their slave, you unlock a level of control over your life that most people will never experience. Every high performer understands this. Your emotions will try to negotiate your potential. They will whisper, "Take it easy," when you need to push. They will say, "You're tired," when you still have more in you. They will convince you to delay when action is required and to explode when patience is needed. Emotional discipline is the refusal to let temporary feelings rewrite your long-term priorities. It's saying, "I don't care how I feel, I care what I'm committed to." This discipline is also what keeps you resilient. When life hits you hard, and it will, emotional discipline ensures you don't collapse under the weight of adversity. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond intelligently. Instead of crumbling, you adapt. Instead of spiraling, you recalibrate. You stay calm in chaos, focused under pressure, and grounded in uncertainty. Those traits are not natural, they are trained. And once trained, they make you unshakable. Emotional discipline sharpens your decision making. It enhances your leadership. It strengthens your relationships. It increases your productivity. It protects you from self-sabotage. It creates a mindset where excuses cannot survive and fear cannot dictate your actions. This is why emotional discipline builds empires, because anything built without it will eventually collapse under the weight of emotional instability. When you master your emotions, you master your life. You stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. You stop being pulled by impulses and start being driven by purpose. You stop being controlled by what you feel and start being guided by who you're becoming. Emotional discipline doesn't just build empires, it builds the kind of person capable of ruling one. Turning trauma into targets means refusing to let the darkest parts of your life remain dead weight. It means taking every moment that broke you, every memory that scared you, every disappointment that shattered your expectations, and converting all of it into clarity, ambition, and unstoppable forward motion. Most people treat their trauma like a life sentence. They carry it like a burden, let it dictate their behavior, and allow it to justify small dreams, weak standards, and timid decisions. But the people who rise, the ones who build something extraordinary, make a different choice. They transform their pain into purpose and their wounds into weaponry. They don't deny what happened. They don't run from it. They use it. Trauma has a way of crystallizing what matters. When you've gone through something that shakes your soul, you see life differently. You stop wasting time. You stop tolerating nonsense. You stop accepting mediocrity. You develop a sharper lens, a deeper hunger, a stronger will. But only if you choose to harness it. A trauma can steal your power, or it can give you more power than you've ever had. The determining factor is how you respond. If you run from it, it grows. If you confront it, it becomes a source of fuel. If you learn from it, it becomes a roadmap. If you weaponize it, it becomes your competitive edge. Turning trauma into targets is about converting your emotional history into specific, measurable, and powerful goals. Instead of letting your past define you, you let it direct you. If you grew up with instability, you make stability your goal. If you were underestimated, you make excellence your goal. If you were rejected, you make self-worth and success your goal. If you were neglected, you make greatness your loudest response. Every trauma becomes a target, something to build, something to create, something to conquer, something to prove not to the world, but to yourself. People often misunderstand trauma. They think it limits them. In reality, it gives you a depth and intensity that people who have lived comfortable lives will never understand. It gives you a fire that cannot be manufactured. It gives you a sense of urgency, resilience, and emotional intensity that, if channeled correctly, makes you unstoppable. But it requires discipline. It requires awareness. It requires the courage to take something that once hurt you and turn it into something that drives you. The moment you start converting trauma into targets, your life changes. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I build because this happened? You stop acting like a victim and start acting like a strategist. You stop breaking down and start breaking through. You turn every painful chapter into a blueprint for the next level of your life. This transformation isn't easy. It demands that you revisit moments you'd rather forget, reflect on truths you'd rather avoid, and accept responsibility for shaping your future regardless of your past. But once you commit to that path, your trauma becomes the reason you don't quit, the reason you don't settle, the reason you don't accept an average life. It becomes the fuel behind every goal, every achievement, every standard you raise, every obstacle you overcome. Turning trauma into targets is not just motivation, it's strategy. It's how you turn your past into a weapon, your suffering into strength, and your broken pieces into the foundation of an unbreakable life. Your pain is not unique, your response is. That single truth separates the people who rise from the people who remain stuck. Pain is universal. Every person alive has been hurt, disappointed, betrayed, abandoned, overlooked, underestimated, rejected, or broken in some way. Everyone carries scars. Everyone has a story they wish went differently. Everyone has memories that still sting, moments that haunt them, and chapters they'd erase if they could. Pain is the most common human experience on the planet, and yet the outcomes it produces could not be more different. Some people let their pain destroy them. Others let it define them. A few decide to let it refine them, and the rarest of all use it to fuel a life so powerful that their pain becomes the very reason they became great. The mistake people make is believing that their pain is special, that no one could understand it, that it excuses their stagnation. But once you convince yourself that your suffering is extraordinary, you give yourself permission to stay ordinary. You start thinking, I can't be expected to rise because of what I've been through. That mindset feels comforting, but it's poison. The world is full of people who have endured unimaginable hardship and still found a way to climb. They didn't climb because they had less pain. They climbed because they made a different decision about what to do with it. Your response to pain is the only thing that separates you from mediocrity or mastery. You can turn pain into bitterness or into ambition. You can let it harden your heart or fortify your resolve. You can let it shrink your world or expand your potential. You can turn inward and suffer or turn outward and build. You can break apart or break through. That choice is always yours, even when it feels like everything else isn't. Pain doesn't determine your future, your interpretation of it does. If you believe your pain means you're cursed, you'll act like you're cursed. If you believe your pain means you're weak, you'll perform like you're weak. If you believe your pain means you're at a disadvantage, you'll live like you're at a disadvantage. But if you choose to interpret your pain as proof of your resilience, evidence of your strength, and a sign that you're built to endure what others can't, you unlock a level of power most people never touch. Your mindset becomes the filter, and that filter decides whether pain breaks you or builds you. The people who rise aren't the ones who had the easiest lives. They're the ones who refuse to let pain write their destiny. They took responsibility for their response. They decided that their pain would not be an excuse, but a motivator. They took the hits and said, watch what I build because of this. They turned suffering into self-mastery, wounds into wisdom, and setbacks into standards that elevated everything around them. Pain will always be part of your story, but how you respond will determine whether it becomes the reason you quit or the reason you dominate. Your pain is not unique. Your struggles are not what define you. What defines you is the choice you make every day to rise, to fight, to build, and to respond with a level of strength, focus, and determination that turns your pain into the most powerful force in your life.